Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are out there in the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is part two of our two-part session on root cause analysis, unearthing the why. Thanks again for being here. My name is Cindy Haight. I am a sales manager here at SGS. I've been here just over 3 years. It's a great company to work for. Sabrina and I both work under the Business Assurance Group. So that encompasses certification, training, supplier audits, sustainability initiatives, and several other services. So that's kind of what I focus on here. And our subject matter expert and speaker today is Ms. Sabrina Ippolito. Sabrina is a classically trained biochemist and certified lead auditor who ensures organizations maintain compliance in a realm of different industries, certifications, and standards, spanning pharmaceutical, cosmetics, and general manufacturing. She's directed, overseen, and improved several quality systems to reduce deficiencies and increase product flow across the US and Canada. She's affiliated with the Professional Order of Chemists of Quebec, as well as the American Society for Quality. Just a little bit of information about SGS as a company. We are approaching our 150th year in business. You can see we were formed in 1878 as an inspection company. Today, we are the global leader in the TIC industry, that's testing, inspection, and certification. We employ nearly 100,000 people across 2,500 offices and labs. What sets SGS apart from other companies in our business space? SGS has a vast global network of professionals. We have auditors, inspectors, testers, you name it, globally, with a presence in 119 countries. We have a very high quality of service, and what I mean by that is we come and audit your company's quality management systems. So we are also audited by our accreditation bodies, and we hold ourselves to those same high level of quality. We have vast industry expertise through our amazing audit team. Our auditors have completed their careers or have vast experience in specific industries, which qualifies them to come and perform an assessment of your company. SGS remains on the forefront of digital innovation through our amazing customer portal, which gives our clients access to all of their documentation, their certificate. And we're going also working in AI to develop our systems so that we can make great improvements in our services. And as well, SGS has a very strong corporate sustainability goals. For 2030, I think we're trying to get down to a 80%, I think, carbon reduction from a baseline in 2019. So we're working hard to be socially responsible. As I mentioned, Sabrina and I work for the Business Assurance Division here at SGS. Obviously, we provide assessment, auditing, and certification, as well as ISO training and risk management training through SGS Academy. We have a variety of supply chain assurance and risk management services, from second-party audits around the country to a customized supply chain database. We also offer sustainability assurance services where we can help with greenhouse gas assessments and also to improve your EcoVadis scores. We offer consulting services through SGS Mainpoint, and we have a huge team that is focused specifically on medical device regulatory compliance. I'm going to turn it over to Sabrina. Here's our agenda for today. I hope everyone enjoys the session. If you have any questions, please do note them in the Q&A area on your screen. If for any reason we don't get to your question, we will contact you individually with a response. There's going to be a survey at the end of the session today. Please do participate. We really appreciate your feedback. And Sabrina, I'm going to turn it over to you.
You're so awesome, Cindy. Thank you so much. And welcome back, everyone, to the second and final part of our Unearthing the Why mini-series. In part one, we built a strong foundation exploring the importance of moving beyond surface level fixes and uncovering the deeper why behind our challenges within our organizations, of course. So now it's time to put that in part one. We build a strong foundation, exploring the importance of moving beyond all of the small fixes. So now we're going to put all of that good theory that we learned into action. So today it's really about applying that knowledge. I carefully reviewed, so I did some homework. I carefully reviewed all your comments from part one, and I did my best to address your needs and answer your questions. So I hope I captured everything you were looking for. Today, we're going to shift from theory to practice, rolling up our sleeves and diving into real-world examples and hands-on techniques. We'll explore proven methodologies like the 5 Whys and Fishbone Diagrams, equipping you with a practical toolkit to systematically uncover root causes. As much as I'd like to cover and use and try maybe different methodologies, I really only have 1 hour, so I'm doing the best that I can. Beyond mastering the tools, we'll also discuss how to embed root cause analysis into your organization's culture. We'll cover strategies for fostering a proactive problem-solving mindset, empowering teams to identify and resolve root causes, and ultimately driving sustainable improvements across your companies. So let's take what we learned in part one and translate it into actionable strategies. It's time to unlock the power of asking why and build a culture of continuous improvement together. If you're enjoying this mini-series, where one session typically focuses on theory and the other on application, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So suggestions for future webinars are always welcome, and every comment, including your feedback on this session, is reviewed and considered. So please take a moment to share your insights at the end. And let's start. So I had one of the learners asked me to include a slide summarizing nonconformances and corrective action. So I decided to add it here. I kept it as clear and concise as possible. It's actually one of my go-to slides. I had used it, I put it together and I used it a couple of webinars ago. So whenever there's a relevant or it's being requested, I like to bring it back up into webinars. So when we've got nonconformances versus root causes, or sorry, nonconformances versus corrective action. So which one do I raise? And this typically tends to be one of the sore points where some people have, right? Like they'll be a little bit conflicted. I've got these two documents. When do I use one over another? Well, typically, if we're even looking at timelines of completions, again, this all depends on your organization. It depends on the bureaucracy within your organization. Some people, when it comes to nonconformances, especially the smaller companies, they might be able to turn it around within 30 days. So therefore, corrective actions, it's 30 days plus. Times of completion, if you're getting into bigger companies, I know there's a bit more bureaucracy involved where you'll have additional people, more complex systems. In this case, this might give grounds for nonconformances being closed in 90 days. In some cases, I've even seen 120 days. But this is really because of the complexity of their systems and the complexity of their processes. Therefore, their corrective actions, they would go get 120 days plus. So when is it that we raise a nonconformance? The nonconformance is typically when you have a requirement that's not met within receiving. So maybe you might have received from your supplier a product which doesn't meet the requirement or doesn't meet, it doesn't meet the requirement as per the PO that was initially sent out. Or you might receive a product that's damaged. That's where you'll raise a nonconformance, so at the receiving. Or maybe in production, so production or servicing, because remember, if we're in business, it's not, or we're working for an organization, it's not necessarily we're working for a company that only produces things, right? We could be working for an organization like engineering firms, where they provide the service of either consultation or drawing or drafting or making some sort of plans. So this goes for equally for production as in servicing. So let's say if we're looking at production where, you know, maybe something in kitting didn't exactly go to plan, or compound, we might have seen a situation occur, or manufacturing, even filling. Then we've got inspection and testing. So here it's where we're either testing in a lab, or maybe we're doing line checks, we're doing testing on a production line, something that goes wrong. You'll raise the nonconformance. Shipping, that's a good one too. So you know that you're sending out some product, that product should have a C of A. Well, in the docket that you have, there's no C of A, there's no certificate of conformance or of analysis. So that's where you would typically raise the nonconformance. And then you've got customer complaints. Okay, but keep in mind customer complaints, because I got a little bit more to unpack there. For corrective actions, okay, we'll raise a corrective action whenever there's an audit that's been performed and a nonconformance comes out from that audit. So this could be from an internal audit, a customer audit, a certification audit, a regulatory based audit, and now customer complaint. So this is when a customer calls in a situation, calls in a complaint, but specifically says, I do not want you to raise a nonconformance. I want you to raise a corrective action. In some cases, you might say, hey, this situation is so severe that even if the client didn't ask me to raise a corrective action, I'm going to take the initiative and I'll do the investigation and I'm going to raise a corrective action, because something like this should not happen ever. In the event of a risk, in the event of any legislative changes, however, some organizations might leverage MOC, management of change, or change control. That too can be open instead. Ineffective nonconformances. So you put in place a plan, you've done what you've had to do, but you're actually seeing that the nonconformances are just as frequent as they were before. So in that case, through a trend analysis, you might decide that, hey, let's go back to the drawing board, or noticing that there's a negative trend, let's go initially to the drawing board and let's see what can be done. Process deviations that are unplanned, unmet quality objectives. This is a biggie. You have a quality objective, you haven't met your quality objective by a certain amount, you need to open up a corrective action. Field failures when you're servicing, accidents and near misses, especially for those of you that are in environmental sectors or in health and safety. Issues identified during management reviews that require corrective actions to address, etc. So anything else can generate a corrective action. So I just wanted to outline that a little bit for you. I know many of you, especially when or at least I've noticed this in previous webinars that I've given, many of you are interested in like, well, what does this actually look like? If you're asking me to fill out a corrective action, what are the actual ingredients? What are the actual sections that I should have in a document? Now, again, this is based off of opinion, right? And all of these documents, like for instance, this example that I'm showing you, a very simple template, don't necessarily say, I'm going to recreate this and I'm going to use this for myself. Remember, this is just, it's a potential template that can be used, right? I'm providing you a guide. It has to meet your company's needs, and it has to meet the complexity of your processes. This is just the framework. So this is a simple template that can be used. Now, I happen to be one of those people that I don't just do things aimlessly to do them so that I can have a certificate at the end. I like to embed processes. I like to embed expectations in my processes. So I'll give you an example. While risk does not necessarily need to be formalized under the eyes of ISO 9001, I like to embed it. I like to embed it in my documentation. Why not? Make it live, make it usable. So you'll notice that in my section 2, I'll have a risk analysis, and then we'll get into section 3 and I've got my root cause. Section 4 will have an action plan. What am I going to put in place to address the situations or the things that might have come out from doing a root cause analysis, from doing my investigation? I might do a follow-up. That's my verification and my effectiveness. And then I'll reevaluate my risk. Why? It's because I want to know whether or not I've been able to do better. There's some organizations I'll say, well, you know what? You need to have done at least 20% better in order for you to accept it. Otherwise, you have to go back to the drawing board. Some people will put those limitations or will put those ranges. That's fine if you want. I personally like it. I'm a numbers gal. You want to know whether or not we've actually made a significant change? Well, in that case, you need to have done at least 20% better or diminish your risk by at least 20% or 30% or 50% or whatever it is. This over here, and I understand you don't see it very well. I'll show you the next slide. The next slide will be a little bit better. So this one's a bit more complex. So this is one that you can use where you'll have all of the header information, very similar to what you've got over here. You've got a header information right before section 1. So here you have header information. You've got the description of the event, of the nonconformance, let's say. What is your containment? What's your immediate action that you've taken? So for instance, if there's a spill on the floor, some of you who have taken some of the webinars that I've done will have known the example of Bob and the oil spill. So your immediate action would be to clean up an oil spill. Then we've got reference documents. Like I said, I like to embed risks. So I'll include a section on risk, root cause analysis, the corrective action, verification, and validation. There's a section on the disposition, a section on approval and signatures, effectiveness checks, and attachments. Any additional documents that you might want to indicate to show proof of objective evidence that the system works or what you've done as an example. So all of these components, they ensure that nonconformances are properly being documented, that they're properly being investigated, that they're being addressed to prevent recurrence and improve the overall quality and conformance within an organization. It's not only conformance, but it can also be compliance. Now, you'll notice that I've strategically done certain areas in black font, and other areas or other sections of what you're seeing on the slide are in gray font. So I've often gotten from people, Sabrina, I don't want to have just, I don't want to have two different forms. Is there a way to have one form instead? There is. You have to just be creative about it. So what you see in black font, if you're that, let's say, that type of individual who's a lot like me, who wants to streamline as many processes as you possibly can, you can opt for something like this. So the form is lengthy, yes, but then you're giving guidelines. So as an example, whatever is written in black font, and you can even go into the little boxes and get creative and like gray them out if you like. Whatever is in black font in this particular example is mandatory for nonconformances, for nonconformance reports. Again, nonconformance report, black. Everything else, so for instance, if you're addressing a corrective action, you can use the same form, but all sections apply. The one in black font and in gray font. So what does that actually look like? It looks like this. Again, I apologize. I understand that the font or that the writing might be a little bit small, but I really wanted to fit everything on one slide so you can get a really good idea in terms of what that would actually look like. So you have the header information, you put in whatever you feel is important that you need to put in there. Consider what you currently already have in place. You've got the description of the event, example, the description of the nonconformance. You've got your containment activities. So those are your immediate actions, who it's completed by. So I'm very big on who completed what section. And again, the intention is so that if we need additional information, we can go to those people to get that information. It's not for finger pointing or for letting them know that, hey, you didn't do this correctly. I mean, sometimes it's a question of, hey, this wasn't properly done, but let me coach you through it. Let's work together. So you really want to be positive about it, right? Because this is also going to set the tone for how people are going to look at nonconformances and corrective actions within your organization. Okay? So I'm not going to go too much into detail with all of those little sections, explaining them now. We'll do that with actual examples. So a quick jog back down memory lane. Remember this root cause analysis methods? We can use a causal factor tree analysis. I love fishbone diagram. You can use the change analysis, barrier analysis, the 5 whys, another biggie, another one that I like very, very much. We can use a risk tree. We can use a parent analysis, fault tree analysis. Again, this list over here is not an exhaustive list. I repeated it again. It is not an exhaustive list. There's probably more, right? So if there is a different method that you know of, that you use, that you like, go ahead and use it. Nowhere is it written that only one method can be used over another. It's not. So what I like to do is, and I tell people, well, if it's written nowhere where, you know, it specifies that you have to use one methodology over another, then list a couple of them and put etc., meaning that you're free to do your investigation and your problem solving the way that you feel comfortable doing it. And that should not be so prescriptive. Again, I got 1 hour to get all of this good stuff together. So the options that I'm considering today are the fishbone diagram and the 5 whys. So I like the fishbone diagram because it does encourage broad brainstorming and capturing of all potential causes. You get different people from different areas to help you out with that brainstorming session. And it emphasizes the importance of team input and diverse perspectives. Remember, many of the standards, they're moving away from having a representative of quality, a representative of etc. It's becoming more of a collaborative effort because quality is not the responsibility of the person that has quality in their job title. It's everybody's responsibility. Some tips and consideration for the 5 whys when you're doing root cause analysis. And one of the reasons why I like it is because it does encourage asking open-ended why questions. It emphasizes the importance of factual answers at each step, and it highlights the collaborative nature of the technique. Okay, so these are just some of the reasons why I like them. Again, are they foolproof? I wish everything could be. Not everything is. Sometimes the question of using different methodologies, sticking to it for a while before you can actually say that, yes, this works for me, or no, this does not work for me. Let's look at other options. But know that there are options. So this is my first example. So I'm going to try to go through 2 examples with you today. My first example, the background is going to be in gray. My second example starts when you see the background in orange. So I just want you to pay a little bit particular attention to that, okay? So I've done 2 examples. One's going to be based on production, so manufacturing. The other one's going to be based off of a service, for instance. So this is addressing nonconformance in raw material quality for finished goods manufacturing. Your header is your header. That's where you're putting, let's say, the corrective action number. In this one, in this particular case, I called it CAR 25-026. This was raised on May 7th of 2025. It's reported by myself, so I'm playing the role of a quality manager right now. Location, area, or department affected. It's the maybe receiving inspection, could even be production. The type, supplier complaints, traceable documentation. So you've come to terms that, hey, there's a situation that occurred that needs to be rectified. We need to do an investigation. So this is where you're going to gather all of the information that you currently right now have, like the information at the start when you said that, hey, we've got a problem here. So there might be an email thread, there might be a PO, a CFC, a packing list, sampling protocol, call it SOP 1, 2, 3, 4, test methods, moisture content. It depends on what you currently have in your hands that initiated this nonconformance, your traceable documentation. So let's break this apart. So this is the description of the event. So during the initial quality inspection, a batch of a key raw material, malt extract, fails to meet specified moisture content requirements. There's a high moisture levels could affect product consistency and shelf life, impacting the product quality and safety. So this was completed by myself. I put down the date. So this was done on May 7, 2025. The containment, which also was done by myself, doesn't have to be done by the same person, but in this case it was. So my immediate corrective actions were to isolate and to quarantine. So basically stop production using the affected batch and quarantine any product manufactured with the non-conforming malt extract. Reject and replace raw material batch, contact the supplier to return the batch and expedite a replacement that meets the moisture specification. So this is now addressing the nonconformance. So what we're going to look at are some reference documents that I'm starting to put together after I've completed the first section and my containment. And I'm going to look at my risk impact. So in my reference documents, I might have an email thread saying that, yes, we've acknowledged the nonconformance, and they're going to tell you what are the next steps. Maybe I'll include a PO. I'll go get a CFC. Maybe I'll look at, test methods. Did a test method change in how we're supposed to evaluate moisture content? Take your packing list. Look at the original PO between the packing list. Do I have the same quality of product? In some cases, if this is going into food, was maybe one grade asked and a different grade was sent to you? Who knows? But this is where your investigation part starts. So now you're going to also evaluate the potential risk. Like I said, I like doing this. I like to integrate this in my corrective actions, in my nonconformances too sometimes, right? So I'll look at what is this risk. In this case, it's a 15. And if I recall correctly, my 15 leads me into the red zone. So it's pretty urgent. This really needs to be dealt with immediately. So in this particular case, so this is where all of the fun stuff starts, right? The root cause analysis. We are going to look at the fishbone diagram. Don't worry, I'm providing you both. I'm providing you the fishbone for this example. Some of you might have said, I don't know if I feel comfortable doing a fishbone. I think the 5 whys is something I feel a bit better doing. Not a problem. I'm also going to do the 5 whys with you as well. So possible causes and hypotheses. So brainstorming session. You get people from different areas, different departments that are subject matter experts, and you start looking what are potential issues that may have happened or that might have caused this. So from a materials perspective, we've got supplier raw material may have had a high moisture content before transport. There could be variability in the raw material moisture content. So very possible, let's say, if you're bagging or you are providing the material and however it is that whatever your packaging system looks like, if that's the area that was exposed to air first or maybe wherever they held it had that section of the packaging system had more air, so it's being exposed to higher humidity, and that happened to be the batch that you received. Who knows? So that's material related. Then you've got your methods. Maybe there's inadequate processes for measuring or for controlling moisture content during the storage or during the manufacturing stages at your suppliers. Maybe there's a lack of standardized procedures for assessing and controlling moisture levels before shipping. Manpower. There could be a lack of training for personnel. There could be poor communication between supplier and transportation teams. The environment, poor humidity control in the storage facilities. Uncontrolled environmental factors such as temperature fluctuations during storage, especially when it's really, really hot out there, like in the summer months, or if you're up in Canada like I am, in the cold winter months. Humidity can be a factor. Machines and equipment, absence of humidity control equipment, or maybe they're not properly calibrated. Maybe they're not calibrated. Maybe they haven't been calibrated in years. Ineffective or missing moisture measurement tools used during storage. From a measurement perspective, maybe there's inaccurate measurement tools for humidity. Maybe there's no consistent monitoring of moisture levels before and after transport. So these are the kind of things that you might get from doing a brainstorming session, like what we would use in a fishbone. If you're using a 5 whys, we're not changing anything. The example is exactly the same. You might want to ask yourself, why was moisture control inadequate during transport and storage? The supplier storage facility lacked proper humidity control systems. Why was the humidity control system inadequate? So this is maybe you're talking with your supplier. And again, most people, what they do, and what I've seen a lot of organizations do as an auditor, what I've seen organizations do is it's in their best interest to work together, to collaborate, so they help each other. So why was the humidity control system inadequate? The supplier did not have the necessary equipment for consistent humidity controls. Okay. Why did the supplier not have the necessary equipment? They did not prioritize investing in humidity control equipment, possibly due to cost-saving measures or lack of awareness. Why was the supplier unaware or not prioritizing humidity control? The supplier's management might not have had full understanding of the importance of maintaining optimal moisture levels during storage for transportation, especially for this specific raw material. Why did the supplier's management overlook the importance of moisture control? There may have been a lack of clear communication regarding the raw material's moisture requirements from the customer, or the supplier might not have had the sufficient quality controls procedures in place to highlight this risk. Now, this is just a hypothetical, right? When you're actually doing it with the information in front of you, with an event that actually occurred, you're not necessarily going to have the ors in there. You may not, but the way that I've presented them to you. So this is another way of doing root cause analysis, where now you can start building action plans based off of your root cause analysis. And I've shown you an example with Fishbone, and this is your 5 whys. Now, this is where the corrective action part comes in. So what are the actions that we're going to take? And you'll notice one thing. I mean, okay, I get a little bit wordy. I get that. But you'll notice that even in my my corrective actions, I'm not writing a thesis. Go point form, be concise, stick to the point. So my first step is I want to collaborate with the supplier to implement and to maintain appropriate humidity control equipment. This is going to be assigned to the director, and I'm going to put their names there. And the target due date, and I can speak in terms of quarters, Q2 2025. I've got nothing to put under notes or miscellaneous. Establish and communicate clear moisture content specs to the supplier. I'll put the quality director's name. In that case, I'm just a manager, so my name's not there. So this will be done by Q2 2025. Implement regular humidity monitoring and ensure that moisture levels are within required limits during storage, at least where I have control over. That's in my organization. This is going to be done by myself by July 1st. Introduce a quality control procedure for checking moisture levels, both at the supplier's facility, so we're working together, and upon arrival at my facility. So this is assigned to myself and to Mr. Zambaris. And the target due date is May 14th. So this should have already been done. Strengthen the supplier requirements. That's my next one. Update the supplier quality agreement to emphasize stricter controls on moisture management, including humidity controlled storage and transport. And that's going to be the director who's going to take care of that. And they're going to get it done by June 1st. So why then? Because there's going to be a lot of back and forth, a lot of negotiating on that quality agreement. There always is. For supplier audits, schedule regular audits. And I put regular audits specifically because that's up to you to decide. It could be once a year until things get back into normal. It could be once a quarter if you're working with them and they're open to you going there and working together and seeing how we can continue our business relationships. Maybe they might say, or maybe, you know, a question of distance, that, hey, we don't want you here all that often. We're okay with having you here once every once every 2 years or once every 3 years. But we're open with having discussions, and we'll show you what's gone on, what's happened, what we're doing, what improvements we're implementing. And that's assigned to myself. And what I've specifically done, and I left a little note, book a 1-day audit on site, if possible, to review changes. Why am I specifically saying on site? Is because in this case, it has to do with food manufacturing. Incoming inspection protocol enhancement. Okay, let's introduce rapid on-site moisture testing for all incoming batches of malt extract, because that's where we're finding the problem, to identify potential nonconformances before production so that it has minimal impact on production. I didn't plan for production. I can't use the material and I have to go back to planning, and there's downtime and reschedule something else. And that is going to be myself and Mr. and Mrs. Sangretti that we're going to work together to identify what is the best course of action there. In this case, because we're looking to probably buy some sort of equipment that's going to be able to test for this moisture, I'm specifying 3 quotes are required, if possible. If possible. This was completed maybe by myself. I was acting as secretary, taking down all of these action items, put my name, and I put the date. And we move on to the next section, the verification, the validation, disposition, and the approvals. Your verification and your validation, this is basically commenting, you know, on a monthly basis or whenever it is that you're doing your quality reviews. I like doing quality reviews on a monthly. You'll be mentioning what was done for steps 1, for action item 2, action item 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Where are you with that? You're verifying what was done. Some people might put notes under, might put those that information under notes and miscellaneous. That's fine. If you want to have a separate section, you can put it under verification and validation. Then we get to disposition. Okay, so this is more like, okay, well, what are we doing with the product? Is it reworked? Are we scrapping it? Are we getting reimbursed? So we can either send the non-conforming stock back to the supplier, or the supplier will pick up the non-conforming product during the next delivery, which is scheduled for, let's say, May 14th. And then naturally, because I have non-conforming product, I want to make sure that I'm getting a credit. So I'm going to be requesting a credit from the supplier. My approvals, my signatures are all documented there. So we've got Michaela Montoni. She's a VP of quality. She signed off on it. And maybe after everything's been said and done, she only got to sign off on it on October 31st. But remember, it's a corrective action, right? I'm not constrained to it being done in necessarily 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. So you might want to wait until everything's been done before you're actually doing your sign-off, your approvals and your signatures and your sign-offs. And then we also have Melanie Perialis. She's a procurement manager because we did have to work with her as well. She puts in her signature, and then we've got the date as well. So you can look at doing something like this. And this is generally accepted, especially if you're being audited by certification bureaus, by doing internal audits. Something like this is something that would generally get a good pass, a bravo, and I can honestly say is already, for at least for most industries, not for all industries, I don't want to be all encompassing, but for most industries, this is already far better than what we would typically see, because most people will put as the corrective action an immediate action. So the corrective action is not an immediate action. You can only do a corrective action once you've done your root cause analysis, because you're correcting it from the long-term perspective, not the short-term. Okay. Your effectiveness check. So you might provide comments to the following questions. Like I said, this is a hypothetical example, right? So you might ask a question like, okay, well, has there been a decrease in moisture-related nonconformances in incoming batches? You make a comment on that. Is the supplier adhering to the revised moisture management and storage protocols? You'll make a comment to that. Are there ongoing issues or signs that indicate additional actions may be necessary? So the individual who will have done the effectiveness check doesn't have to be the same person, doesn't have to be the quality manager. In this case, I was playing the role of a quality manager. It could be done by someone else, someone who's maybe even an auditor, who's an internal auditor, for instance. And this is completed by, in this case, it wasn't done by myself. Maybe I was on holiday, I was vacation. Maybe I went off to a different organization altogether. And this is completed by Alexandra Vancelli, and she dates it December 16th. She made some time go by so that she can evaluate what all of the action items were put in place, if that actually made a change. This is also the place where you could also include your risk priority number. So you evaluated the risk when the situation occurred, which, if you remember, gave us a 15. You might reevaluate risk again and see, did that change? Probability might have been reduced drastically. The impact might still be the same, but it's not happening as frequently as it happened before. And then you include all of your attachments. So what did you work on? Maybe you revise a quality agreement, include your quality agreement, or make reference to it. Update your sampling protocol, include that sampling protocol, or make a reference to it. Update the test method for moisture content, include it. Maybe there's also a validation to it, include it or reference it. What are your sample specification sheet look like? You might include that or reference it. Usually control documents have a reference number. Validation protocol reports, temperature, relative humidity, trend analysis. You might have done a validation report for temperature and humidity. You'll include it. And that's it for the first example. Now we're moving on to the second example. So this report over here is card 25048. So this is just to give you some context. There's addressing privileged access nonconformances for an unauthorized account on HRDB01. Again, traceable documents. You notice, what did you look at? Did you look at a system and access log, change management records, maybe security specific documents, so on and so forth. The description. So let's go through the description of the event. You've got an unauthorized user account, tempadmin07, with elevated privileges, was discovered on the HRDB01 server. This account was not part of the standard user provisioning process, and its purpose could not be immediately identified. Okay, what's the immediate corrective action? With everything that's going on with cybersecurity these days, the unauthorized account, tempadmin07, was immediately disabled and subsequently deleted to prevent any further unauthorized access to actions. Okay, good. Conduct a preliminary investigation to understand the account's creation date, activity logs, if there are any, and any resources it might have accessed. Determine if any malicious activity occurred. You look at your access logs. Ensure the server and any other potentially accessed systems are secured and monitored for any suspicious activity. Attempt to trace the origin of the account creation. Review the system logs, audit trails, and any relevant records. And finally, you want to inform the appropriate teams, including IT security, systems administrators, potentially HR, about the ongoing investigation. So this is everything that you have to do immediately. That's your containment, if you will. Okay, so you'll notice over here, I have a nice plethora of information that I included in here. But basically, my reference documents are going to be all documents for system and access logs. So any system and access logs, I'll include them, firewall logs, server logs, web server access logs, so on and so forth. I might have some change management records that I want to keep. So change requests, was there a request made for this database or for this specific server? Security specific documents, vulnerability scan reports, penetration testing reports, incident response records, and any other traceable documents you can get your hands on, network diagrams, asset inventories, audit trails in application. And then we do our risk. So in this particular case, the risk was a 20. So let's do the 5 whys for this one. So why was the account created? Okay, well, a former IT technician created the account for temporary troubleshooting purposes on April 28th, 2025, and failed to remove it after the work was completed. Okay, we're going somewhere here. Why was the account not removed? There was no formal process in place for the creation and subsequent removal of temporary administrative accounts. Reliance was placed on individual technical diligence. So it's the technician who would have had to create it and then remove it. All right. Why was the oversight not detected earlier? Regular security audits of user accounts and privileges were not performed frequently enough. The last audit was 3 months ago or 3 months prior. Okay, why were audits infrequent then? The security team lacks sufficient personnel and automated tools for more frequent and comprehensive audits. All right, so why was there a lack of personnel and tools? Budgetary constraints, and I think everybody can chime into this. Budgetary constraints have limited the expansion of the security team and the acquisition of advanced security monitoring tools. So we can almost say that, You know, the root cause is a lack of formal processes for managing temporary administrative accounts and insufficient frequency of security audits due to resource limitations. Okay, that's pretty much what we're having to address. And this is completed by myself with the date. This is what the fishbone diagram would probably look like. So over here, again, we're looking at materials. You got compromised credentials, vulnerable software, you got methods, you got a lack of formal user provisioning process for temporary and privileged accounts. You might have insufficient access controls, lack of regulatory security audits, manpower, you have malicious insider. That happens, eh? Sometimes we do end up getting that. We'll end up having an employee who's not happy, who got reprimanded and decides that they're going to one up the company, or they're going to or they just have malicious intent towards the organization. Then you've got the environment. Maybe there's a lack of physical security controls, weak security culture or awareness, inadequate logging and monitoring infrastructure when it comes to machines and equipment, vulnerable server configuration, misconfigured network devices. Under measurement, you might have a lack of real-time monitoring of account creation or insufficient logging of administrative actions. I mean, I just gave you 2 or 3 per category just because I don't want to lack time, but you can see how you can build on this. And this is a more in-depth, holistic, and it is not a Band-Aid fix. Your corrective actions, you might want to implement a formal policy and procedure for the creation, use, and automatic expiration of temporary administrative accounts on all critical systems, especially those with elevated privileges. Implement strict guidelines for temporary accounts, including automatic expiration by, say, May 22nd, 2025. So there, who is it assigned to? Marie Dubois, she's IT Security Administrator. Target due date is the 22nd of May. And you continue line by line. What are the action items that we're going to do? Next one's conduct a comprehensive review of all existing user accounts with elevated privileges on all critical systems. Get this done by May 15th. Address any security weaknesses identified during the investigation, such as software vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, or inadequate access control. This is going to be given to David Chen. He's a senior IT administrator of security team. I don't have any notes or miscellaneous in this particular example. Oh, well, that's fine. Implement an automated system for regular, at least bi-weekly audits of user accounts and their privileges across all critical systems by June 15th. There you go. The system should flag any newly created or anomalies for immediate review. Include specific training. Submit a budget request. Review and enforce the principles of least privilege. Ensure that users only have the necessary access for their roles. Implement multi-factor authentication where it's appropriate. That requires for you to do a gap analysis. Obviously, the subject matter expert in charge, let's say. Your verification and validation. Again, you're going to go up, you're going to take everything we've documented over here in terms of our corrective actions, and you'll provide feedback. Verify. You might want to verify the implementation of the temporary account management policy and the automated audit system. Review audit logs to ensure the systems are functioning correctly and that anomalies are being flagged. Conduct a follow-up audit of user privileges 1 month after the corrective actions have been implemented. Your disposition, remediate security vulnerabilities. Implement or enhance account management processes. Improve your security auditing. Enhance your monitoring and alerting. Provide security awareness training. And then you have your approvals. Because in this particular case, this for me was a little bit of a higher risk, and being, like I said, cybersecurity is problematic, especially today. You might have required additional sign-offs. So here we have Jean Tremblay. He's our security analyst. We've got Lolita Labelle. She's our security manager. And we might have Sarah Miller. She's the head of IT security. Our effectiveness checks. What's your short-term action? Within 1 to 2 weeks of implementing changes, focus on verifying the correct implementation and initial functioning of new controls. Midterm, between 1 to 3 months, conduct more in-depth analysis of monitoring data. Long-term, 6 months and beyond, ongoing, continue your trend analysis. This is done by Alexandra Vincelli. And you'll notice between example 1 that we looked at and example 2, even how I'm entering information, it doesn't have to be prescriptive. You can design it the way you want. I might have additional attachments there as well. User provisioning policy, access control policy, temporary account management policy, if one exists. You can either include them as part of the documentation or you can reference them so people know where to find them. Awesome. So, strategies for integrating RCA into your organization's culture. This was actually one of the questions that did come up. What are some strategies that we can use? So integrating root cause analysis, RCA, into an organization's culture requires a multifaceted approach that goes beyond simply training your employees on RCA techniques. It involves embedding the principles and practices of RCA into the way people think and work every day. So I'm listing here some key strategies you might want to consider, and I'm going to pay particular attention to the first one, the leadership buy-in and championing. So I'm not a fan of this, but I'll tell you anyway, if some of you are interested in doing a deep dive, so just because I don't have that much time left, take a snapshot of these 7 and read into it if you're really interested in it. I'm going to bring us into leadership buy-in and championing. So the strategy here is really to secure strong commitment and active participation from senior leadership. Leaders must visibly support RCA initiatives, allocate resources, and communicate its importance as a strategic priority. You're right. If you do not have the buy-in by leadership, it's difficult to get this beast in motion. So some actionable steps that you can take. Include RCA principles in leadership communications and your strategic planning. Actively participate in RCA investigations for significant incidences. Recognize and reward teams and individuals who effectively utilize RCA. Allocate budget and personnel specifically for RCA training, tools, and implementation. I've seen larger companies having an improvement department, and they're typically the ones that will chaperone or spearhead these type of projects. They're not the ones that are doing it all. They're helping, they're chaperoning, they're mentoring other departments to get the work done. Some strategies for integrating RCA into your organization's culture. So some things that I want you to think about: patience and persistence. Cultural change takes time and consistent effort. Don't give yourself 1 week. Oh, if it doesn't happen 1 week, I'm going to drop it. It takes time. If you believe in it and you're that person who truly believes in it, keep at it. It takes time. It works. Contextualization. Tailor RCA methodologies and implementation strategies to the specific needs and the context of your organization. Also, the complexity of the forms that you're using has to meet the complexity of your industry and of your processes. Communication. Clearly and consistently communicate the value and purpose of RCA. And engagement. Actively involve employees from different levels and departments in the integration process. Awesome. All right. So fostering a proactive problem-solving mindset within an organization involves encouraging individuals and teams to anticipate potential issues, to identify root causes early, and implement preventive measures rather than solely reacting to crisis. So we're not looking for that Band-Aid fix. Some effective techniques you may want to try may include the following listed here. And as much as I'd like to unpack this in the next slides, we're running out of time. So again, take a snapshot. These are some things, these are some techniques that you might want to try. You want to promote foresight and anticipation, empower ownership and initiatives, cultivate a learning and improvement culture, develop problem-solving skills, embed proactive thinking in processes, leadership modeling and communication, and utilize data and analytics. And I cannot tell you how important they're all important, but especially number 7, because that becomes your objective evidence. So by consistently applying these techniques, organizations can cultivate a culture where proactive problem solving becomes an ingrained habit, leading to increased efficiencies, to reducing risks and crises, and continuous improvement. So remember that this is a gradual process that requires sustained effort and reinforcement. All right, so empowering teams to identify and address root causes. Collective power, enabling teams to own problem solving. So you want to lead by example. Facilitate. You're there to chaperone, you're there to mentor, facilitate, don't dictate. Teach RCA skills. Create a safe space. People are gonna mess up. It's normal. Do you think I didn't mess up? Of course I did. Time and time and time and time and time and time again. Which is why I know now, with all of my mess ups in the past, what works and what didn't work so well. And I try to guide people away from doing the things that didn't work so well. I like to tell people, don't plagiarize. Don't make the same mistakes I made. Make your own and learn from them. Fail forward. Delegate ownership. If you're working in quality and you've mastered quality, but you don't know production all that well, you can delegate corrective actions to production. You just need to tool them. Provide resources. Encourage diverse perspectives. Promote collaboration. Fishbone diagram, everybody. Ask powerful questions. Recognize and celebrate your successes. Share your best practices. Remove obstacles. I don't like people that just come to me with problems. I like people that come to me that, hey, this is a problem and this is what I'm suggesting. What do you think? Yeah, let's brainstorm about it. Let's see what the best foot forward looks like. Trust your team and focus on the system. Don't blame people. Remember, especially for the last point, 90% of situations of nonconformances, of problems, are system-based. At least 90% of them are system-based. They're not people-based. Awesome. So lasting impact, achieving sustainable improvement with RCA. So remember, root cause analysis isn't just about fixing problems. It's about embedding a mindset and process that drives sustainable improvement across the entire organization. It's not department dependent. It's organization dependent. Addressing why for long-term changes. RCA digs beyond systems to tackle the fundamental reasons behind issues, preventing recurrences and fostering lasting solutions, not just temporary fixes. Builds organizational learning and knowledge. Each RCA investigation adds to the collective understanding of processes, the collective understanding of vulnerabilities, of your gaps, and best practices, creating a foundation for proactive prevention in the future. Fosters a culture of continuous improvement by empowering teams to identify and solve root causes. RCA cultivates a mindset of ongoing evaluation, adaptation, and proactive optimization. It drives systemic change, not just isolated fixes. RCA often reveals underlying systemic issues that, when addressed, will lead to improvements across multiple areas and prevent similar problems elsewhere. It improves efficiency and reduces waste long-term. By eliminating the root causes of inefficiencies and errors, RCA contributes to streamlined processes, reduced rework, which translates to money, and better resource utilization over time. And on that note, Cindy, it's all yours.
Hi, Sabrina. That was another amazing session. It was a great tie-in from last time a couple of weeks ago. So thank you for all of that information and all those amazing examples. Everyone, thank you for being here. Thanks for sticking with us throughout the hour. We hope you found the session to be very informative and helpful. You can see right here, you can scan the QR code to reach our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to that and have access to all kinds of on-demand content, including recordings of webinars like this one. I think I mentioned at the beginning of the session, we do offer training services through SGS Academy. We have ISO 9001 training and training to all of the, well, maybe not all, but several of the ISO standards. If you have any questions about that, you can type it in the Q&A, or you can reach out to me directly. This is Cindy. But you can see we have requirements, internal auditor, lead auditor, and an integrated management system for ISO 14001 and 45001. We also have IRCA lead auditor training courses. Thanks again. There's our contact information, our social media. Like I said, you will have a pop-up opportunity to click through and answer our survey questions. We would really be happy to receive your feedback, and we do appreciate that and consider that towards future sessions. Sabrina, I have one question I want to ask before we are completely out of time. Are you into it? All
yeah,
right.
go for it.
This is a good one. How do you keep an investigator from zeroing in on using human error as the catch-all for any errors in the system? For example, the operator just needs to do their job right.
Oh, yeah. So that's a goodie. And that's also a simple one. You just don't accept it. You refuse it and you say, go back to the drawing board. You quite literally, you do not accept it. That's it. Sorry. Go back to the drawing board. We do not accept it. Yeah.
And then we had a comment or a question earlier about the MORT risk analysis method, a management oversight and risk tree. And the question is that still used, or is that more of an older system or methodology?
You know what? I'm going to be very honest with you. What I know pretty well. I'll never call myself an expert because there's always more things to learn. This is not the first time I've heard about this one. I need to do more studying on it. So I unfortunately cannot comment on this, but I'll tell you what, I am going to make it my mission statement to learn more about it. And I will hopefully, with you guys, with SGS, come up with, because I'll likely do root cause again, and I will include MORT. Awesome. So I'm sorry I don't have data for you, but I don't have info for you, but I will make it my mission statement. I did take it down and I will do more digging on it for sure.
Thank you, Sabrina. So guys, we have to wrap it up. We are just past the top of the hour. Like I said, any questions that we did not get to, we do have a report and we'll go ahead and take down we'll receive your questions and respond to you individually. Thank you all for being here. Look for more free webinar sessions. I think we have at least 3 or 4 more coming up before the end of this year. So stay tuned for more amazing information. Thank you guys for being here. And everyone have a great rest of your day.